What's up everyone, my name's PlatinumHowler, coach of your Coquitlam Red Gyarados, and today I'm bringing you my Week 2 match of the PCL D-League versus Devious Ditto and the coach of the Devious Dittos. You can see his team over on the right side of the screen as always, and his two Z-move users are Cobalion and Ludicolo. This is a team that I did build by myself, albeit it was a rather rushed build, or a relatively rushed build, because I did have to play this game fairly early in the week because I am going away for the weekend. Baseball tournaments, 4 hours away from home, it's always fun. That's not meant to be sarcastic, it is always fun. But we do have a team here that not a terrible amount of thought was put into, to be totally honest. But we basically just built to make sure that we had checks to everything on his team for the most part. We are, of course, a little weaker to one or two things, but you know, we'll go over that. So we'll just hop right into the build here. We have Tapu Koko. It's choice specs because outside of a ground type Silvally, he does not have any electric immunities on his team, so I am free to Volt Switch, Thunderbolt the crap out of him unless he has a Silvally, in which case I will try to put myself into a position where I can easily predict a Silvally ground switch in and click choice specs Grass Knot, and that will definitely be a 2-hit KO. Thankfully, Grass Knot is 100 base power against Silvally. It would be nice if it was enough to OHKO, but I don't think that it is. If I was modest, I might have a chance to OHKO. And he could be, you know, very HP and special defense invested as well. So yeah, I don't think we'll be OHKOing that Silvally no matter what. But if we catch it on the switch, then we'll weaken it for some other things on our team, and that's going to be nice. He does have a Mega Ampharos on his team, and Koko is a pretty decent defensive response to that, but I don't want to have to be switching Koko into that because I'm going to be boosting his electric type attacks with the electric terrain, and he could just Volt Switch out pretty easily. I was actually thinking about bringing Alolan Marowak to this game for the Lightning Rod, so that his Ampharos couldn't Volt Switch for free on my team, but that actually wouldn't have been a very good idea because the Mega Ampharos does have Mold Breaker, so it would have ignored my Marowak's Lightning Rod and just Volt Switched out on me anyway, and probably done well over 50% to me. Anyways, a pretty straightforward Koko set. Will just be aiming to punch holes through his team as early and as often as possible in this game. Next up, we have our Drapion. Last week we brought like very offensive double dance set, but this week we are fully physically defensive to switch into the Tapu Bulu, which is one thing that can take hits decently well from the Tapu Koko, so we're going to want to make sure that we have a defensive response to that. I am trying Poison Fang over Poison Jab this time because I don't think that Poison Jab would be an OHKO on the Tapu Bulu, and even if it was, like, I think I can get away without the lower damage output of Poison Fang because I don't see Bulu really doing a whole hell of a lot to the Drapion. But either way, I can threaten some decent damage on the Bulu with a 4 times effective Poison Fang, and if he switches out into something like the Tornadus or the Politoed, then I have a 50% chance of getting damage off. Well, I'll always get damage off on both of them, but then I have a 50% chance of getting a Toxic Poison on them, which is going to really help wear those mons down. Knockoff is basically just for the Aegislash, and then we have Taunt as well to prevent the Ferrothorn from doing Ferrothorn things against us. We have Fire Fang on here to also hit the Ferrothorn because we don't really have a lot on this team to deal with the Ferrothorns, so we need a fire coverage somewhere, especially because I'm not bringing the Marowak, so Ferrothorn definitely could be a pain in the ass to wear down, but I do have another cool piece of tech on here that might be able to catch the Ferrothorn off guard. Next on the team, we have our Gigalith, and we are bringing the sand, but we are not bringing Excadrill to take advantage of the sand. Sand is nice to give Gigalith the special defense boost so that it can be a pretty good defensive check to the Tornadus. And we also have the sand to get rid of the opposing rain because he has a couple of Swift Swim sweepers that could be very difficult for us to deal with. Mainly the Ludicolo. The Ludicolo under rain can be very threatening because he does have powerful Grass Stab to break through my Milotic. So making sure that we can get rid of the rain and have our other offensive threats outspeed him is going to be key. We have a Chople Berry so that we can easily take a hit from the Cobalion, assuming that it would go for close combat against me over Iron Head, because I do have, I don't have, my resistance to close combat on this team is Tapu Koko. I would think that he would predict the Milotic to be the switch in over the Koko, so going for close combat is probably better on his end. So we have the Chople Berry to make sure that we can easily live that. And then if he brings the Cobalion in against this, I want to stay in and get Earthquake damage off against him to ensure that I can pick him off with Koko. I want to make sure that he is in range to die from any one hit so that he feels threatened to switch out. You can also take a Focus Blast or a Superpower from a Tornadus that thinks that it's weakened us enough to the point where it can KO us with one of those coverage moves, and then hopefully we hit our Stone Edge, and that should be more than enough to knock it out. Pretty standard Gigalith set here. Next up we have our Milotic. It is max physically defensive, mainly to try and take on Cobalion as best as possible. But we are not Marvel Scale. Instead, we are leftovers with competitive. Competitive is going to be, could potentially be huge if he brings the Silvally and tries to Parting Shot against my team, because Parting Shot normally would give a -1 drop in both attack and special attack, but because of competitive, that's actually going to result in me getting a +3 boost in special attack. This thing should also be able to take on most variants of Aegislash, as well as most variants of Politoed, because we do have the Refresh to get rid of a Toxic that he might want to try to afflict us with. And we have Toxic of our own for the Politoed to wear that thing down. So once we get a Toxic on the Politoed, we are always going to be 1v1ing it, because he won't... we can continuously heal off our Toxic on ourselves, and the Politoed will have no way of healing itself. Next up, we have our Assault Vest Serena here, and this is the other tech that I mentioned for the Ferrothorn. We do have an Endeavor Serena, and the reason for that is I can see myself switching this in on the Ferrothorn to make sure that I don't allow him to get any Leech Seed recovery, because of course grass types are immune to Leech Seed. I can spin away any hazards that he might try to set on my side of the field, as long as he doesn't switch in the Aegislash to block me. I can pivot out on the Ferrothorn with U-turn, and yes, all of these attacks will force me to take Iron Barbs and possibly Rocky Helmet damage, but that is just going to wear me down quicker so that I can possibly get an Endeavor off against the Ferrothorn. So if I get weakened enough, say I get down to like 10% HP, and I can use Endeavor to bring that to bring it low, hopefully that will catch him off guard, and then he will be in range for it to die to pretty much anything else on my team. I'm kind of unsure of the last move slot on this arena though. We are going to go with Play Rough so that we have a way of hitting the Mega Ampharos. But I'm not even sure how likely of a bring that is against a Tapu Koko. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong, and he might just bring it and Volt Switch and try to Volt Switch on everything. I mean, I have an Excadrill as well, which can take most hits from Mega Ampharos fairly well. So hopefully I don't regret not having Grass Stab on this for the likes of like Kabutops or Politoed or stuff like that. We are also Brave Nature and minimum speed so that we take as little damage from Ferrothorn's Gyro Ball as possible. And last on the team, we have our Choice Banded Staraptor to complement our Choice Specs Tapu Koko. This hits a pretty nice speed tier against his team. I just ran enough speed on this Staraptor to outspeed max speed Adamant Tapu Bulu. So it's nice that I don't have to invest too much into speed, and I can invest a lot more into my physical attack so that I can be doing as much damage as possible. And then also have a lot of HP investment so that the recoil from Brave Bird and possible Iron Barbs on Ferrothorn isn't whittling me down as quickly. If I can get this Staraptor in against his slower Mons, he's going to be very, very pressured because he does not have great switch-ins to Brave Bird. The Mega Ampharos could take. I mean, I would think it'd be 2-hit KO'd by Brave Bird, and hopefully it doesn't switch in before it's Mega Evolved and then get a static paralysis on us. That would be kind of unfortunate. We don't actually have Double Edge on this Staraptor to hit the Mega Ampharos. If we do get the Staraptor into a position where we can bring it in and get a lot of damage against that, because I never want to be locked into a normal type move with Aegislash still in the back. I mean, we do have Quick Attack for priority to pick off the likes of a Ludicolo in Rain or a Tornadus. But if I had to pick between Brave Bird and Double Edge, most of the time I will be picking Brave Bird. So I didn't see a reason for me to lock myself into Double Edge against that Aegislash in the back. Most of the time we will be clicking Brave Bird and getting huge damage off against this team. And hopefully he feels pressured to bring in the Aegislash to tank hits from this thing, and we can wear that thing down easier. That's going to be the team for this week. Not a pretty standard team for the most part. Not much like not many tricks up my sleeve for this game per se. But I would like to play this game in a way where I can, not mitigate the damage that he can do against my team with a lot of my defensive answers, and then try to make some aggressive double switches to get the likes of Tapu Koko and Staraptor into favorable positions. And that's how I think I'm going to win this game. So, yep, that's the team, and hopefully we can pull out a win and bring ourselves back up to 500, and I'll see you right back with the battle. Here we are back with the battle, and looking at my opponent's team, the first thing that I notice is that there is no Tornadus. I'm glad that I won't have to play around its regenerator and pivoting shenanigans, but that does also mean that Gigalith is pretty useless in this game outside of trying to set rocks up and resetting his weather. No Cobalion on his side is also nice to see. I didn't have the best switch-ins to that thing, but it also means that that's one less stealth rocking option for him, meaning that the only one that he has in this game is his Ferrothorn. We also don't see the Mega Ampharos, which I'm not surprised didn't come, but I'm also at the same time like glad that it didn't come. And the fact that it didn't come means that his only resistance to Brave Bird is going to be that Aegislash, or possibly some kind of Silvally type that resists flying, but I definitely anticipate that being a ground type Silvally, as I mentioned. The other two Mons for him not making an appearance are the Vivillon and the Kabutops, which I am definitely not surprised to see left on the bench on his side. We're about to get into this now, and sit back and get comfortable because this is a long one. But with that in mind, I am going to decide to lead with my Staraptor to pressure his team right off the bat. It should be able to outspeed his entire team that's not Scarfed. He doesn't have the rain up, obviously, so there's no way he could outspeed me with a Ludicolo yet. So we are just going to U-turn out on the Ferrothorn to scout its set as it goes for a Protect on the first turn. That's totally fine. I was just wanting to U-turn out on it anyway. We see that it is not a Rocky Helmet set, so likely to be a leftover set. And I bring in my Serena here to hopefully absorb a Leech Seed, but instead I'm going to be hit with a Toxic, which is kind of unfortunate, but not the end of the world, because this Serena is kind of designed to be worn down anyway, so that I can get the Endeavor off against the Ferrothorn. But we do see that he is a Toxic Protect Ferrothorn with lefties, so this is a very stally Ferrothorn, and I'm just going to pull the switch out into my Drapion right away because I know that he's going to go for a Protect. Now I'm going to go for a Taunt if he wants to go for his hazards, but we're going to see Leech Seed. Toxic Protect Leech Seed is the most disgusting Ferrothorn set I've ever seen. Like, how am I supposed to weaken this thing with my only Fire-type move being Fire Fang Drapion? And my Drapion isn't even offensive, it's fully defensive, but... So, you can see why this game was so long already, having seen what that Ferrothorn set is, but... anyways... after the taunt, I predict him to switch out into the Silvally ground, and I get the 50% toxic poison on him with the Poison Fang, which is really nice. That's gonna be really key to helping wear down that Silvally. And now, as he goes for a parting shot, I bring I bring Melodic in, and my competitive activates. So I am now at +3 special attack as the Ferrothorn comes back in, and I'm going to take my chances that he does not have Power Whip, or that he doesn't go for it here. Maybe he tries to go for a Toxic or a Leech Seed, that's fine. And I'm going to try to get a Scald Burn off on him, because that's actually one of the best ways I have of beating this Ferrothorn. I do quite a good chunk to him with the +3 Scald, but unfortunately I don't get the burn, and now that I'm seated and he can just Protect Stall me, I do have to switch out. This turn he's going to go for a Toxic as I bring in my Drapion, so of course I am immune to the Toxic. And as he goes for the Protect, I am going to go for a knockoff into it, trying to knock off his leftovers. Really no drawback play on his end. He's just going to get that extra little bit of leftovers recovery. And now he's going to switch out into the Silvally again, as I'm going to go for the Taunt this time. So this Silvally being taunted means that it can't go for Parting Shot, it can't go for Thunder Wave. So now, since I'm expecting a Ground-type multi-attack to come out, I'm going to switch in my Staraptor to be immune to the multi-attack, and now I'm free to fire off a very powerful Brave Bird and get some big damage off against his team. He is going to switch out the Silvally into his only flying resist, being the Aegislash, and this is something I do need chip damage on. Even though this banded Brave Bird isn't going to do that much damage to this Aegislash, any damage against it is crucial to put it in range for it to die to my Coco later in the game. Hopefully, that's how I plan on taking it out at least, but he is going to go for the Gyro Ball, and that does absolutely nothing. That was a crit Gyro Ball, and it did about 20 damage to my Melodic. See, who needs Flame Orb Melodic, right? Melodic can still take hits even without the Marvel Scale boost. So we are going to go for our free Scald as he brings in the Ferrothorn, and we're praying for a burn, and we don't get the burn. So, 2 Scalds against the Ferrothorn, no burns yet. That is kind of a bummer, but, you know, nothing you can do about that. We're just going to have to be patient and hope for a burn on it eventually. But now, this time, he goes for the Leech Seed as I bring in my Serena, and I, of course, block the Leech Seed. I'm going to get worn down by the Toxic. Try to go for a U-turn here as he goes for the Protect. Again, no drawback play. He's just going to get that extra Toxic damage off against me. But I am going to go for the U-turn again to pivot out, do a tiny bit of damage against him, and get chipped down by the Iron Barbs. and pull the switch back into my Drapion, as he was very free to make the prediction that I would go into Drapion or something else that he could Leech Seed on this turn, because of course, my Serena is already Toxic, so there's no sense in going for Toxic or any other offensive move, right? He can just predict me to switch out easily and just stay in and continuously go for Leech Seed until Serena goes out into something else, but I'm okay with being Leech Seeded here because Ferrothorn's still at full HP. It's not like it's recovering any health. It's just sapping away my health, which I am mitigating a little bit with the Black Sludge recovery. But now he does go into the Silvally as I try to knock off the Ferrothorn's leftovers, but I'm just going to get a little tiny bit damage off, and Silvally is going to recover a little bit from the Leech Seed and then take a little toxic damage as well. So again, Melodic is going to come back in, and this time he's going to go for a Crunch. I believe this was somewhat of a middle ground play. He didn't want to give me a +3 special attack boost and go for Parting Shot, and he didn't want to let my Staraptor in for free. But I am going to take that hit very easily with my Melodic. And now the Politoed is going to come in as I go for yet another Scald. And the third Scald that I go for, I was hoping to be able to Toxic this Politoed, but instead I'm going to get the Burn off, which is not the end of the world. It's just going to mean that Politoed's going to take a little while longer to wear down. I would have liked to go for a Toxic against it, but I will take the residual burn damage. Certainly not complaining there. So on that turn, I went for a Toxic in case he wanted to pull the double switch out into Ludicolo, because there's nothing Milotic really can do to a Ludicolo outside of getting the Toxic. And I'm always going to beat this Politoed 1v1 anyway because I have the Refresh. So the first turn he went for an Ice Beam, probably predicting or trying to predict a Serena switch, but because this Milotic is designed to always 1v1 this Politoed, there's no reason for me to do that. And the second time, this time he's going to go for a Toxic, and now I'm going to go for the Refresh to heal off that Toxic, and I just basically wore down that Politoed for free. He didn't really get much out of that exchange at all. And now the Ferrothorn comes in, and I get a Rain Boosted Scald off against him. But unfortunately, I don't get the burn as he mixes a Toxic. So I'm glad he missed that Toxic because I didn't want to stay in and continuously click Refresh as he just kept getting Leftovers recovery. But now he's going to catch me and bring in the Ludicolo under Rain as the Drapion comes in. And every time this Ludicolo comes in Rain, I am not liking my position. But he actually switches out his Ludicolo, fearing a poison move from my Drapion, and he's going to go back into the Ferrothorn as I switch in the Serena to hopefully take any type of hit from the Ludicolo and be able to U-turn out and get a lot of damage off against it. Because I was a max attack invested Serena, but certainly not attack invested in Drapion. So Serena is going to get out of there, and Drapion is going to come in to take that Gyro Ball. And because I see that his only attacking move is Gyro Ball and not Power Whip, I am a lot more free to stay in with the likes of Gigalith and the likes of Melodic against this Ferrothorn, so that I can do things like set up my rocks and stay in to go for a Skull Burn against it. So, because Gigalith is so slow, even though that Gyro Ball is super effective, its base power is really, really low, so it's not doing anything to me at all. So I switched my Gigalith in there for free, and 3 turns in a row, he is going to get ridiculously hacked out as he missed 2 Leech Seeds and a Toxic against my team. So he missed 3 10% accurate moves in a row. So that's, I would be slightly annoyed if I were him, but the 4th time he is going to get the Leech Seed off against my Melodic, and the 4th Scald on this Ferrothorn is finally going to get the burn, so that's really, really nice. But again, I don't want to be seated. Serena is going to come in to, get worn down and try to eventually get into a range where I feel comfortable going for an Endeavor against the Ferrothorn, but now in comes the Tapu Bulu, which we're going to see for the first time. And I'm expecting this thing to have Mega Horn, and I have a dedicated defensive response to this Tapu Bulu being my Drapion. It's been a little bit worn down by the Ferrothorn, but that's okay, because it's going to go for the Stone Edge instead of the more powerful Mega Horn. And thanks to the Grassy Terrain and Black Sludge recovery, I'm going to be able to take on this Tapu Bulu very well. He is going to switch out into the Ferrothorn, and I'm finally going to reveal that I have the Fire Fang for this. Again, like, that's a 4 times effective move, and it's not even doing half to this Ferrothorn, which is now gaining Grassy Terrain and Leftovers recovery. Thankfully, now that it's burned, so I'm actually kind of in a position where I can comfortably stay in and weaken it with some Fire Fangs. I probably should have anticipated him switching out and gone for a knockoff there. There really was no harm in me going for knockoff, because getting rid of his Leftovers would have been nice as well, and that extra bit of damage on the Silvally would have helped further down the road. But we do get some Fire Fang damage off against him regardless, and Melodic's going to come in again, and that multi-attack does a decent amount of damage actually, but we are Leftovers and going to get Grassy Terrain recovery as well, so that's going to help us put us well out of range to die from another multi-attack, you know, provided he doesn't get a crit. But of course we're going to go for the recover on this turn to keep our Melodic healthy, and the Politoed is going to come back in, take some rocks damage and some burn damage as well. So Politoed hasn't seen much of the field, and it's been weakened quite easily by just chip damage in general. But anyways, I go for a Scald on this turn as the Ludicolo comes in. Like I said before, I went for Toxic on the Politoed, even though it was burned before, to try to prevent this, but thankfully I get a burn on the Ludicolo this turn. This chip damage on the Ludicolo is going to be vital, because I have a really hard time pivoting around this thing. It hits my team really hard under rain when it's able to outspeed everything that I have. So this turn he goes for an Ice Beam. I once again predicting my Serena to come in, but I'm actually going to switch in my Gigalith, because as I've said, my Gigalith is not really that helpful for anything else but resetting his weather. So I'm gonna have it chew that Ice Beam, and we see that his Ludicolo is Life Orb as opposed to a Z move, which is good information, and that's gonna help chip him down even more for the late game. I then pivot into my Serena to take a resisted water or grass type attack, but he's actually going to pull the switch out into the Ferrothorn as I just U-turn out. And now we're going to see Tapu Koko hit the field for the first time. On turn 42, with still no Mons knocked out on either side of the field, Koko is going to hit the field for the very first time. And because he is burned, we are going to be able to take that Gyro Ball rather well. It does hurt us that the sand is still up though, because we're going to take an extra 12% on these 2 turns from the sandstorm damage. But we are going to pressure him by going for a Volt Switch here. And he is going to have this Silvally here that's going to be able to be immune to the Volt Switch, and he is going to not die from the poison. So that's what I meant when I should have gone for the knockoff when this went in before, because then it would have died. That extra little bit of damage would have helped put it in range to die from that toxic poison, and I wouldn't have had to switch Koko out on that turn. But regardless, he does go for the Defog to get rid of my rocks as I bring in Staraptor, anticipating a multi-attack. And so Silvally finally goes down. The first mon of the match goes down, and he brings in Tapu Bulu next, which screams that this is a Choice Scarf Tapu Bulu. So, expecting him to go for a Stone Edge again and not a Grass type move, I am going to go out into my Gigalith, which is going to eat that hit very easily. And mere turns after he got rid of my Stealth Rocks, I'm going to set them up again as he goes. As the Ferrothorn comes out again, I swear, half of this match is just Ferrothorn stall on his end, but it was a good strat because I didn't bring a whole heck of a lot for it, I will admit, but it did make this game incredibly long and hard to post-commentate for me. But now we're getting to the point where Serena's getting really low, and I can go for an Endeavor against this Ferrothorn. And that's what I'm going to go for on this next turn. Now, I realize that there is a very real possibility that he can go for a Protect, but that is not the worst thing in the world. Unfortunately, you see here, he does go for the Protect as I reveal the Endeavor, but this is going to pretty much force him into making a play that's going to allow me to gain some momentum against him. He still has the Aegislash in the back, which, because it's a Ghost type, it is immune to Endeavor, and if he switches it in here, he'll take no damage, and then I'll go down to the some combination of Poison and Sandstorm chip damage. So that's the play that I'm going to expect him to make, and I'm actually going to go for the U-turn out into my Coco, which is going to get rid of his the grassy terrain, ensuring that he doesn't get any more recovery on that Aegislash. And I'm also, by doing so, I'm also going to be able to preserve my Serena as a sack later in the game. And this Choice Specs Thunderbolt is going to annihilate that Aegislash. So now we have a 6-4 advantage as the Tapu Bulu comes back in. And because my Serena is still alive, this is the perfect time to bring it in and let it go down to a Hornleech. And because I know that, or I'm assuming that he is Scarfed by the way he brought it in against Staraptor. I don't actually know whether or not he's Scarfed, but I can bring Staraptor in now, and if he is Scarfed, then he's locked into a Grass-type move, and that won't be doing very much damage to my Staraptor. So I can fire off a free Brave Bird here, as the Ferrothorn is going to come in and is going to drop to this Brave Bird. So now all that he has left is the Politoed, the Ludicolo, and the Tapu Bulu, and instead of bringing in the Tapu Bulu to come in and outspeed me potentially and kill me off with a Stone Edge, he is going to decide to bring in the Politoed, so he's giving me another free kill in doing so. But what he's going for, he's just going to set the rain up so that he can bring his Ludicolo in and outspeed me on the next turn. So I'm going to bring in my Gigalith to get rid of his rain, but he is going to make a very, very good play and go for the Rain Dance, predicting my switch out into Gigalith. And now I'm in a little bit of a precarious position because I have to switch this Gigalith out, or else he's going to be under rain and outspeed my entire team, and he's totally free to go for Giga Drain on this turn and get a whole bunch of recovery. So I need to pull the switch into something that gives him as little recovery as possible, and that's going to be my Drapion, which resists the Giga Drain. This is the time where I wish I didn't get recovery from Grassy Terrain and Black Sledge, but Grassy Terrain goes away, and this turn he definitely makes a bit of a misplay in my opinion by going for the Surf instead of going for Giga Drain again. I definitely should have been in range to die from another Giga Drain, and that extra little bit of recovery could have helped him out a lot here, because my only play is to bring in Staraptor and go for a Banded Quick Attack to hope to knock this Ludicolo out at this point, and thankfully it does. And who knows, maybe if he had that little extra recovery from Giga Drain, then maybe he would have been able to survive that hit, and I pretty much just lose the game after that because Ludicolo outsped and destroyed the rest of my team. But anyway, his last mon is the Tapu Bulu. Grassy Terrain is going to be reset, so my sack here is going to be the Tapu Koko to get rid of his terrain, so that I can bring my Staraptor back in, and because his Hornleech isn't as powerful, I can survive that attack. And so now we finally see that his Tapu Bulu is in fact Choice Scarfed, as we suspected all along. And because he doesn't have the Grassy Terrain boost, we do outspeed, or sorry, no, we don't outspeed the Tapu Bulu, but we survive its hit and knock it out with a Brave Bird to win the game. Unfortunately, Staraptor does go down to its own recoil, so that costs us 1 differential point, but I am not complaining about that. I am very happy to get my first win of this PCL D-League season. GG to Devious Ditto. Phew, man, I had to get a sip of water after that postcom because that was a lengthy one. Of course, Devious Ditto's links, Twitter and YouTube will be in the description. Make sure to go check out his side of the battle, as I know that he did do a live comm of this game, and you don't want to miss out on that because he is a very entertaining guy. This game was 60 turns long, took about 45 minutes in real time to complete. It was so long that it actually took longer for me to record the footage for this video than it did to actually play the game, which I find really, really funny. The nature of the game just being such a war of attrition and just me trying to wear down his Ferrothorn, basically, which I didn't have good answers to, and me trying to keep my team as healthy as possible too. So both of us were making our moves really, really quickly because, you know, neither of us wanted a game to go to timer or anything. The game didn't come close to going to timer. I never thought at any point that that would happen. But because we were making our moves so quickly, I think that affected, at least it affected my ability to carefully consider making aggressive plays to get ahead in this game. As I said in my team builder, that's the way that I wanted to approach this game, by just having my defensive mons to absorb most of the hits and then try to make some aggressive doubles into the likes of Coco and Staraptor. But it was very hard for me to pick my spot to do that. I mean, I did it once or twice, like I switched in Staraptor against a Silvali's multi-attack to which I was immune, and that helped me get some good damage off against this team. Thank goodness for Staraptor, though. If not for Banded Quick Attack, I definitely, I do not think I win that game at all. Hopefully, if it didn't kill, maybe his Life Orb recoil and the burn chip damage would have been enough to knock him out. And in that case, Tapu Bulu would have been the last mon. His Scarf Bulu would have outsped my Tapu Koko and hit my Gigalith and Melodic super effectively. So what I would have had to resort to is I would have had to make sure that I got rid of his terrain so that he wasn't doing as much damage to my Gigalith and Melodic. My Gigalith was very defensive, so I'm saying Coco would have had to come in first to make sure that I keep my terrain. I would have sacked the Coco off to Bulu, and then Gigalith would have come in to hopefully survive an attack and get a Toxic off against the Bulu, and then I would have had to sack Gigalith off and sit there with my Melodic and Toxic Stall the crap out of him. Hope that I could live his Horn Leeches and just sit there and constantly click recover. I would still have my leftovers as well. So hopefully I would be able to not take too much damage from that Tapu Bulu, as Toxic whittled him down to the point where it would basically just kill him, because he would continuously be getting Horn Leech recovery as well. So it would have been a very tricky situation there. He might have just won if he was able to lock himself into Woodhammer. Because I don't know if my Gigalith would have been able to survive that even outside of grassy terrain. But I'm just saying that thought process was already going through my head in the event that Staraptor's Quick Attack didn't knock out his Ludicolo on that turn. Anyways, that's going to be a wrap for this marathon game this week. And next week, we have a transactions video upcoming, because we did make some substantial changes to our roster. So you are going to want to keep on a lookout for that as we head into week 3. Week 3 is going to be against Oddsar and the Memphis Bewares. So keep an eye out on that. We'll have some new faces on the Coquitlam Red Gyarados. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. to keep up with PCL D-League content, and make sure you catch all of our transactions next week. So until then, we'll see you later.